Right, good afternoon, councillors, and welcome along to our November meeting on this fine, sunny, cool day. I will declare the meeting open and ask for any apologies. I think we have one councillor who's not here. I'm sure he's coming. So an apology for lateness from Nick Grant. Would somebody like to move that be accepted, please? So I moved, Councillor McPhail. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Stuart. Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. Thank you. So are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared that aren't part of the standard conflicts that have been declared today? It doesn't appear to be. Thank you, councillors. So we move on to the confirmation of minutes and reports, and we have the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Tuesday 12 October for confirmation. Would somebody like to move that be seen as a true and correct record of that meeting, please? Councillor Highstead, seconded Councillor Reid. Thank you. Are there any alterations required to that record? There aren't. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Do we have any urgent late business that needs to be tabled at this point? There's not. We'll move on. Thank you. And it brings us to keeping of animals, poultry and bees bylaw on pages 9 through to 21. Who's going to lead this discussion?
I can, Your Worship, if you wish.
Yep, that'd be great. Thank you.
This is a bylaw, Your Worship, that we've had in place for 5 years and is due for review. The staff's point of view is that the bylaw is working well and is an effective tool in regulating the keeping of animals in an urban environment. So the council does need to turn its mind and decide if it wishes to continue with the bylaw and therefore go through a public consultation process under the Local Government Act. But our strong recommendation is that the bylaw should continue, and what it does provide for is that you can keep animals in an urban setting, but there are rules and they must be adhered to ensure that they don't cause a nuisance to other people who in the urban area that possibly would not normally expect to see animals being kept. But as I say, it's been an effective tool and we recommend its continuance.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, this particular item is open for discussion and or recommendation. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just possibly a question for Steve. I noticed that this bylaw does not apply to dogs and cats, which is understandable. But just of interest, do we have a bylaw which pertains to the number of cats you're allowed to keep? Because I know there was a case, I believe, in the Cargill where a certain householder was keeping a very large number of cats. So do we have that? Is that in another part of our legislation, or is it with something we don't have?
Through you, Your Worship, cats get a pretty clear free run. So we have obviously a dog control bylaw. This includes and so we have other animals. There has been over probably decades thought been given to regulating the control of cats, particularly around both the concentration of cats in one dwelling, which can give rise to concerns about odour and other unpleasant things. And of course, the predatory nature and the fact that some people let cats out at night and to run amok. But there's a big but. The government has not really moved on that front. Unlike in some jurisdictions within Australia, I understand, for example, that New South Wales has actually a cat and dog act regulates the keeping of cats. But no, a simple answer is cats pretty much enjoy a free license at the moment, at least in the Gore district.
Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I'd like to move that, move the recommendation of that report.
Okay. So just before we ask for a seconder, Councillor Dixon and Councillor Highstead, you had your hands up.
Well, thank you, Worship. I endorse my concern about having a policy around cats because they do carry some very serious health issues like toxoplasmosis, and they can't be contained in anybody's section. So they're like, along with you have to keep rats and mice in an enclosed area or within your property. And I know it's very difficult because cats are a sensitive issue, most likely, and I do like cats, but I'm just wondering for the future whether we should be thinking about some sort of policy on cats, because I believe it costs, like Australians, there's been research done, $6 billion annually for people that are affected by cats, and they are a serious issue for pregnant women.
Okay, well, thank you, Glenys. So what I understood Steve to say is we don't have any scope for that at this point in time. Is that right, Steve?
Through Your Worship, there's nothing in the statute book that gives you a sense of confidence and reliance that you can use to put out a bylaw, for example, on cats per se, unlike, say, dog. There's the Dog Control Act. But that's not to suggest that you can't have some sort of bylaw, but it would need to be carefully assessed, and you'd have to, again, go through a process of identifying the problem, what is the problem and what is the best means by which to address that problem, which is good lawmaking or policy process to go through, but we'd need to do that. And it may be, Your Worship, that it could be, if there's interest amongst councillors, it could be something that lends itself to perhaps a small working party of both elected members and officers to work through the issue and also see what else occurs in other councils, if anything, in New Zealand.
Okay, good point. Thank you. Brett.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Just a question for Steve, just through you, Your Worship. At number 3, there's 2 specific exclusions: veterinary clinics, pet shops. I just see the Gore District Council dog pound's not part of the exclusions. I just wonder if that's worth reflecting on. And secondly, the AMP Society land in Bannerman Park, but we don't refer to other bits of land owned by the council, such as Charlton Road. With the passage of time, is it appropriate that they're reconsidered as part of the review, Steve?
Through Your Worship, yeah, definitely. Yes, I could certainly sit down with our senior regulatory services officer and just work out whether there should be some additions to those particular locations that are not applicable to the bylaw. Yes, thank you.
Okay, look, I think there have been good points that are made. So do we don't have a seconder for the motion as such. Do we want to alter that motion to any specific recommendation? Doug, do you want, just given the discussion we've had now, do you want to perhaps add to that a working party be formed just to confirm the scope that council might have?
Yes, Your Worship, that sounds agreeable to me. Just alter the wording of that to say, and a working party be formed to look into.
So the scope of the council with relation to control of cats and regulation around cats, as well as the second one that was just raised then about there was bees in areas that weren't specified. Is that right, correct?
Just locations, the exceptions under item 3. But I guess, is this going to hold up the consultation on the review of the bylaw, or is that a separate piece of work? Like, surely 3 could be changed before it goes out for consultation in terms of locations, and the CAT working party can get going.
So just in terms of process, Steve, your suggestion here?
My suggestion, Your Worship, is that you take it in a two-pronged approach, so that you approve the bylaw subject to a staff review of the exclusions in clause 3 taking place for public notification, and that separately that you establish a CAT working party, or whatever you want to call it, to look at the possibility of introducing some controls or to regulate the keeping of cats in the district.
Sounds good. So you're moving that, Doug? Yep. Do I have a seconder for that? Glennis, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the recommendation that has been added to? There's not. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Right, we'll move on to item 6, and we have a report from the Chief Executives and the Comms Manager. I don't think we've got the Comms Manager with us today with regard to Eccles Street and a petition that came to council recently. So, Steve, do you want to introduce this particular discussion?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. This is really the aftermath of the controversial Streets Alive initiative that officially ran for 3 months, from end of March to around about mid to late June this year. And there has been some further dialogue and engagement with the community about some remaining aspects of the Streets Alive program that should potentially be retained in the future. In the meantime, however, there has been a petition circulated by those who I guess are holding the council to its word in regard to that it was a trial, and then once the trial was completed, all trial aspects would be removed. That said, there were some things that the council quite openly stated it wanted to continue with because it had received very strong positive feedback, and I refer specifically to the Irk Street furniture and the roundabout at the intersection of Irk and Fairfield Street, which also found strong favour from those who were surveyed. The bollards, however, on the corner of the intersection of Eccles and Main Street are a different kettle of fish. I think with respect, they are a bit of a lightning rod for those who are somewhat traumatised or bruised by the Streets Alive program, and see it as more akin to street works that have no end point in sight. There's certainly a proposal for a permanent arrangement, which is included in the attachments, to have a no right turn at the Eccles Main Street intersection. I think, Your Worship, the key point here is to signify to the public at large that any motion or resolution to remove the bollards is not necessarily an acceptance that there's not going to be no right turn at the corner of Eccles and Main Street. What you are doing is saying, well, yeah, the trial is over, and that the bollards, if you do approve their removal, would be on the basis that it's likely that there will be a permanent infrastructure introduction to facilitate a orderly and smooth transition for a no right turn at the intersection of Eccles and Main Street. So the report has been prepared on that basis, that it's about the removal of these temporary facilities, not necessarily agreeing that there will never be no right turn at Eccles and Main Street. So that's, and Mr. Stannering is here and may be able to be in a better position than I am to commentate on the prospects of Waka Katahi or NZTA funding to bring about the permanent provision of a no right turn that would be in sync with the type of modern improvements that we want to see as opposed to the temporary option we have at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So Peter, do you want to make some comment now?
Just on a point that raised about the funding, there is funding that is actually coming on stream with the second row of tranche of innovative streets, and part of that has actually been promised to be turning some of the positive aspects of this innovative streets into permanent fixtures. But the detail of that hasn't actually been released as yet, so that's what I'm holding out for. That, and also that if we did something on Equal Street, it would require some sort of consenting from the local NZTA representatives. So that would be something we work through. Necessarily on the state highway, they would actually be doing any funding, any of the changes themselves. So once again, there's always sort of discussions to be had. But this is to get to a point where the community were actually happy with no right turn there and having some demonstration of what that looked like, albeit it may have been misinterpreted, but certainly the intent was to leave it there until there's some decision made, and that's what we're here today with.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly the bollards have been a rallying point for people who were really concerned about not just that particular item of change, but also the whole thing. So to get that removed and work towards some sort of permanent operation of the street would be good in my mind, but open for councillors' discussion and or recommendation. And we have a recommendation on page 24. So Councillor Dixon, you've got your hand up, then Councillor McFarlane.
Oh, thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering what the difference is between likes of Norton, Preston, Earl and Medway streets where you have right turning. And also if we are actually going to ignore the petition where 500 people actually want the right turn out of Eccles Street. I thought this was discussed at our last meeting, and that the courtesy crossings were to go. And I see the courtesy crossings are still in place. And I'm just wondering where all this, what has happened to the committee that was going to take care of removing all of this infrastructure.
Okay, well, some good questions there, Glenys. So Richard, do you want to make some comments on that one, and then Councillor Davis, Nikki?
Yeah, and I thank you, Worship. Okay, firstly, I'm going to sound like a bit of a stuck record, but we obviously have a bit of credit to comms and their roading crew on getting us to this point. I think there is some difference in opinion or different sort of aspects that we've been presented with today regarding what we're actually looking at. Particularly we're talking about the Eccles Street and Main Street intersection. Now, I'm probably going to throw a spanner amongst the works here because with due cognizance to the review group and obviously the survey and the partition, and also note in our report that it really should be the councillors agree to a permanent solution here. I think that we should be looking at this partition, and for those who have actually followed the survey results and also the various review groups and obviously the partition that has come in, a closer scrutiny of that partition for those who haven't gone through it thoroughly. There's actually 60 different street or ratepayers from different streets have actually signed that partition. I know there is some discussion around how it was labelled, but for those who have been bearing a lot of the phone calls from ratepayers and road users will understand that a lot of it was referenced to the Main Street, Eccles Street situation. So I think that today
if we look at that recommendation, that we should actually be reinstating that right turn at present. I don't think we should actually be giving that indication to install that right turn. And I'll come back to the second issue that leads with that. I know that our roading managers indicated we've got a 54% increase on state highway there. That actually continues right up to where a lot of people talk about the roundabout and the distance they have to travel back through, which is some 750 metres just back into town, or they take the varied route. I think that if we are going to look at a recommendation that is outlined that we are improving or want a permanent infrastructure there needs to be a small amount of work done on that. And I believe the right turn needs to go back into there. The bollards need to be removed, and the bollards in the other situations need to be removed. And we need to see how much traffic's actually turning right there, how much traffic's going onto the state highway there, because we didn't get any measurement or statistics to indicate how much we were putting into the traffic flow. Remembering, if we push them north onto Bowler Ave, they come down through a stop sign and they make the same right turn again onto a same stretch of road, which is only further north. So the traffic flow won't change from that point to that point. The second issue is obviously the roading manager needs to make operational decisions, so we need to be able to support him in that. But we've opened this up to a community and a consultation process. And I think that we need to, as a council, recognise that 500 names have come into the council in an acceptable manner in relation to a community issue. And I know that from my own personal point of view, friends and family have indicated that they wish that to remain. But we also have a large majority of signatures that have been brought to our council that indicate that they don't want it to remain. So in the correct community process, we probably need to recognise that. And that has to be, if we're talking about this intersection today, the council will either yes or no recommend that we reinstate the right turn, and that our roading manager then goes back, does that, and then comes back with the further information that substantiates why that should go in, because we still haven't got the statistics or the information there. And Peter may be able to help us with that. I know that he's probably thinking, is the dog being wagged by the tail? But the situation we are sitting in is consultation. And in today's environment, particularly as council, we know what it's like to be on the receiving end of a non-consultory process, particularly if we reviewed it with the Three Waters reform. So we should stand up and actually accept that these guys have gone out and done this and have a bit of a look at it. I have gone through the surveys. I have gone through the review information, and that's probably where I would stand on this subject. There's been a lot of work done by the team. I know that there's some great stuff that comes out of it. We've got the roundabouts, we've got Erk Street, and I know Peter's got some other designs and matters that will progress. Streets Alive is finished. We're moving on to the next stage. Let's just tidy up a few of these issues. If we need to go further with that infrastructure there, I think it's a separate issue again, and that at the present we remove it back to what it originally was, and then start their game plan from there.
Oh, thank you, Richard. And I guess you've spoken well about the particular issue and your feelings on the issue and the community view, and separating those 2 points. And I guess probably I'm in a similar camp to that. Personally, I like the no right turn, but I recognise that a lot of people have said this is an imposition to us, so we need to take notice of that. But I know that I use Bowler Ave quite a lot, and trying to do a right turn across the main road at the end of that is a nightmare. And I recall using Eccles Street in a similar way and finding the same thing. So I'll be interested to see what the stats show in terms of who actually uses it for a right turn and how many people are there. But we do need to recognise a petition and the validity of that. So, look, I think we're heading down the right track. But Councillor Davis, then Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I think we're opening ourselves up for a lot of grief if we take them all out, open back up to a right turn, and then in the future put in a no right turn where people can't turn right out of there. I think you're setting council up for quite a bit of grief on this one. So I think we need to just make a decision on whether we keep with no right turn at all, or whether we reinstate the right turn. I don't think we should be removing it and then putting a right turn in later. That's going to cause a lot of backlash from the community, I believe. And you've got 530 something people already that have said we want the right turn reinstated. So you go taking out the bollards and everything, open it up, let people turn right, and then next year sometime you go and put all the bollards in and remove it again. So that's my view. I think you go one way or the other. I don't think you should be confusing the public.
I think the points you make, Nikki, are good ones. But I guess we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there is, while we have 500 signatures wanting a closure of the right and no right turn option, and I'm prepared to go with that, there were quite a few other views out there as well. So we need to get rid of the bollards as they currently stand. And then, as Councillor McPhail has said, do some testing, do some measuring, and just see what the particular issues are. It is a busy route, and it's going to become busier if we allow the right turn there as well. So we just need to bear in mind that if we do take those away today, the traffic flow will change, and we should always be monitoring that. It's been interesting through this whole process of Streets Alive to see and since Streets Alive has changed substantially, the increase in traffic on Main Street has been substantial. And nobody's really been able to give me a satisfactory answer as to why that increase on Main Street has happened, but it has. So we need to take that into account as well. But I recognise the points that you make, Councillor Davis. So we don't want to be seen to be flip-flopping on this one, but we need to have some stats behind decisions that we make. Sorry, Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was part of the committee that was for the small committee that was formed after Streets Alive, and to be honest, Streets Alive was supposed to be over and done with, and at the end of it, and that was it, basically. And there were a few things to tidy up, but I didn't know anything about this, the survey going up, whether I missed a meeting or wasn't told about it, but all of a sudden the survey's come out and now we've got a report written, and I didn't even know there was a petition going around. So how did that all come about? Was that done through comms going out by themselves, or was it directed by the chair of that small committee, or what was the story? Because, and this is a question that Councillor Dixon just raised a few councillors ago. So how did we get to this stage? As far as the recommendation, well, that would be a good one to answer for a start. Thanks.
Well, I think as far as the petition goes, that's quite separate to council, and there's been a group of concerned citizens that promoted that, and that's fine. In terms of surveying, my understanding is that's just a summary of the comments that have been made on our Let's Talk platform, which community members can go in at any time and make comments. So I think it has been.
Your Worship, just in regard to that, the question was to answer Councillor Grant's question. It did go through our comms manager, and it was also discussed with Peter Standring. I'm pretty sure the councillor might have been there. We just wanted specific information, how we could obtain some specific information regarding the equals in Main Street, because one of the complaints from the community was they never got a chance to comment on it in the first two surveys. And I think that's where that derived from. And I think the catalyst for them, or the groups or the people that were involved from there, was that they thought they had to put their signatures again, or put together the group to come back to indicate that they had that there, and discussion with them. But there was queries in regard to the question they have on the top of their partition. I'm not sure whether you've been through and read that question. It's listed in the notes there. But there was a number of those things that were being stated in there had been sorted by the roading manager anyway. So sorry, Your Worship, I was just going to answer that for you.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, I actually I support the feelings of Councillor Dixon. I believe we should actually, and Councillor McPhail, we should take the bollards away. As you've got 500 people that have written their name to it, take them away, open it up again, and then, as Peter Standring has suggested, we don't own that section of road anyway, so it's going to have to go through NZTA or Waka Katai to get sorted. So it's really a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Thanks.
Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. Another issue I think that was raised, and I think it's rather, it's good to bring up now as well, is the giveaway sign on Eccles Street and Elsie Street. I just don't know why that hasn't been removed, because it just seems that the major flow of traffic is down Eccles Street and the minor flow is coming out of Elsie Street, and they're usually turning right or left. They're not going straight through. I've seen one or two people not slowing down there at all, thinking they have right of way, which could cause an accident too. I'm wondering why that hasn't been removed.
Look, I'll get some comment from the roading manager, but I know myself as someone that uses Eccles Street regularly, that certainly it's a lot slower down there, and there's been quite a bit of appreciation by the residents of that street with the slowness. Certainly it's a change, and it's a change we have to get a head around, and I know some people struggle with, but perhaps to Peter, if you could talk a little bit about what the plans are there.
Certainly for yourself, Worship. To answer that, Eccles Street was specifically brought up in some of our initial community meetings as a street of speed, far too busy, congestion. So it was a targeted street to actually try to sort out. So two of the ways of sorting that out is actually stop people turning right into State Highway, so people won't take that option. They'll go further and go down Crombie Street, and I believe that is where people are directed rather than all out through Bulwer Ave. I think if you're working in a city, in a town, you'll go up Bulwer Ave, but generally people in the residential area, they'll opt to go down Crombie Street now. So I think we have done a fair amount of actually redirecting traffic down that way, Crombie Street out on State Highway for a roundabout, which is more logical. So we've taken that away. So the speed down Eccles Street, which was well talked about, this is what this intersection does. It brings people to a stop. Vehicle, the predominance of traffic usually has the right of way, but in this case, the point we were trying to make is just trying to slow vehicles down. So once again, talking to the public, talking to the people who have businesses down that way, they're seeing a noticeable change in the speed down that street and being a lot safer. Especially when you have kids, hospital people, you've got preschools, all mixing in those areas, crossing over, having slower speed environment certainly helps. It goes a long way for improved safety.
Okay, so Bronwyn, I think you were part of the working party too. Do you want to make any comment on these particular issues we're discussing now?
Thank you, Your Worship. Completely the Eccles Street one, I know that the residents there have appreciated the slowness of the traffic. I think that's a good one, and it's just a matter of people becoming more used to the traffic flow, particularly when you've got, as Peter said, the medical centre, the hospital, and there's a lot of traffic parked on the side of the road, and you've also got the people crossing that road, and I've noticed with the slower traffic, they're actually much easier to spot, and they can spot cars as well, much easier. Eccles Street turning south. I live on Crombie. I use the roundabout at the end of my street. But I think, given that there's also a facility there, the playground for the young ones, that no right turn option is possibly a good one. I'm in favour of the no right turn option, and a lot of people who didn't sign the petition but actually took part on the Let's Talk arena were actually quite positive about it. So I think you've got a 50-50 call on that one. I think we just need to be a little bit more cautious about jumping in and saying it's not going to happen. I think we need to have that ability to turn around and say, yes, we've got numbers and stats. But also, if we're going to do that, I'd like to know if we could possibly have some stats of the number of traffic at the Crombie Street roundabout too, just so we can see where that flow is, whether more people are using it. But yeah, that's my opinion anyway. I'm quite happy to see the right turn go. I think it's just an accident waiting to happen.
So, Councillor Highstead, then Councillor Bolger.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Just some of the feedback I've had regarding the Eccles Street give way is the confusion. We've set up a number of small roundabouts around town, which people are used to, but when they travel down Eccles Street, they encounter a give way where different rules apply. I was just wondering, Peter, has any consideration been to perhaps a roundabout on Eccles Street? And, you know, what's a give way now so it's consistent with the rest of our modifications?
For Your Worship, look, most definitely. We have moved on from street slide, but was always going to inform a package of work improvements going forward. So that active modes program, forward roads program, will be coming to council for your look over. But certainly one of the recommendations will be to people like roundabouts. They've got just the roundabouts. Having a roundabout on Eccles Street there makes a lot of sense. So I'd be pushing for that.
Good. Councillor Bolger.
Yes, the roundabout there is a much better idea. As far as the right turn to go south, people should not be crossing the centre line and turning south, particularly when they've got a roundabout a short distance south. It's you know, it's dangerous. Whether it's inconvenient or people have a preference that they want to do that, it's dangerous. I don't, however you describe it, it's dangerous. It always will be dangerous. It's not the thing to do. It's the wrong thing that we should be doing. So I'm in favour of not having a right turn, but Peter's just raised the point of the possibility, perhaps, of a roundabout. That makes sense. I've got a question for you, for Peter. Is there any crash statistics for that Eccles Street State Highway 1 intersection?
For Your Worship, no, look, I haven't got those statistics. I can address one of your concerns earlier, Your Worship, about the increase in traffic. This is statistics that came from Wakakatahu themselves. And this is the outskirts of towns. That's outside of the area of influence of Streets Alive. It actually showed a 50% increase from, I think it was April last year through to June this year, of traffic that was flowing. I can't explain it, they can't, but the only thing I could possibly put to it is that with Mataura Valley there, where there's more traffic coming through town because of that. Yeah, maybe living in Mataura, I don't know, coming back and forward through town, but that's definitely a count that was actually made by the agency themselves.
Okay, right. Councillor Phillips, then Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just got a question for Peter. So, did you do any monitoring while the bollards were up on Eccles State Highway 1? Any monitoring, like the traffic flow coming out and going in?
As far as we had particular traffic counts on those roads, I'd have to actually sort of take them out to recall them, to show them. Monitoring of the no right turn, how we're going to set out now with the roundabout, with bollards, is that what you're questioning?
Correct. So did you do any traffic flows while it's completely set up? Because my concern is that I'm in favour of keeping that no right turn, but if we haven't got any monitoring done, how can we justify leaving it there and saying that this is the safety issue if there hasn't been any monitoring saying that there's the safety issue of the right-hand turn is decreased, and you're travelling only another 600 metres to the roundabout and then back again. Like there is other streets that you turn down that you can cross over the State Highway 1, and I'm just a bit concerned that we've never done any monitoring.
Look, we have actually done observations of how it is flowing. One of the concerning things we came up with was a lot of people use that intersection as a turnaround. We had people turning into Eccles Street and being lost. They had to do a U-turn and go back down the main street. They were generally using it as a turnaround at that intersection, which complicates it all as well, which is another concern with people using it in that fashion, and you've got right turning traffic and you've got an increase in traffic. But no, look, there wasn't any sort of general, it was a contributing factor, the safety at that intersection. The flow of traffic up and down Eccles Street was the main outcome we were looking for here, and yes, we did have traffic counts, which was supported the decrease in traffic.
I do know that I do know that the car dealer across the road was extremely grateful about what's happened and with the no right-hand turn, because it makes his business a lot safer, because he hasn't got traffic coming out almost straight at his business to turn right, and he only then knows about the traffic that's coming straight from the north to south, and he doesn't have to worry about the cross traffic. And it's a good point for him and businesses along that street.
Okay, thank you. Richard, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, just your worship, through to Peter there. We've also had a huge increase in traffic, like it's larger than the increase south of the township travelling north through Railway Esplanade, which we're also having, I think it was 83% or 82% increase there. So there is traffic travelling somewhere through our town and making our roads busier. And I think that does form basis for what we're actually looking at here today, which is why I sort of indicating that if we have got traffic flows increasing, and as Neville, Councillor Phillips has said, we do need to have some sort of statistic or some stat to base ourselves on, so we're going back there. I'd also just like to reiterate what I said before, that with the partition and having worked with this working group, that we have to be careful that we don't set a precedent for roading changes. And I think Councillor Davis said it as well, like we start tampering with things and changing at this level, that the roading manager is able to make adjustments and plans and different matters. It's probably because of the partition that this has been brought into the public eye, and we have quite a large community commentary regarding it. I do stick with the recommendation in response to Councillor Bolger. Generally, if you make a right-hand corner turn off any intersection, you will cross the centre line. So there's not much you can change about that in life. If you're driving a motor vehicle, you will go across the centre line unless you've got a different way of driving. So, but with the recommendation, I believe that put it forward that we stick with the first three recommendations: the reports received, the community feedback, that the orange bollards on the intersections are removed, but also that we reinstate that right turn south. Whether we want to reword the intention from our roading manager to review that intersection later, that's probably the debatable point.
Yep, thank you. Look, I think that the points have been well made. And as I said before, personally, I'd favour a no right turn. However, we do need to recognise 500 people. and there is an obligation on council to do that. But we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that that is a changing and evolving situation on Main Street. And as I think Peter and Richard have both said, the volume of traffic that is at both ends of our town is increasing substantially. We don't really understand why that is. But as the traffic increase goes up, then the risk goes up. And particularly when you mix it with children and playgrounds and that sort of thing. We also need to remember that Eccles Street itself is it becomes a very busy street, and it does have the doctor's surgery right on it, and also the turn off to the hospital. There is quite a number of people crossing the road on Eccles Street, so having that slow is particularly good, I believe. I know it may inconvenience some people, but certainly it conveniences other people who are trying to transact the street to get to a medical consultation. Brett, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, just quickly, Your Worship, just a question to Peter. We're talking about removing the orange bollards from Eccles Street. What about the rest of them around town, the bottom of Broughton Street? I understood it was an orderly removal of the activations. When are we going to see them go? There's one on Robertson Street, they're scattered around town. I think it's time to see those orange bollards that are irritating people off our streets. I don't know if other councillors agree with that.
For your worship, they have been put in there for a purpose to, a lot of activations still have bollards. You still have some, a lot of other bits and pieces out on the street still. So they could all be taken in. The reason we've left them there is until we can actually find a pathway to permanency, I suppose. We've actually sort of left them, a lot of the crossings, albeit the pots and planters have been taken in, the crossings are still there essentially, and people are using them. We are seeing that happening. So with the government policy statement governing a lot of what I do, it's upon me to actually be putting to council that we do need to make town friendlier to the active modes. So I would be in this position anyway, as far as pushing a program of work to you about active modes and about crossings. What Streets Alive has allowed us to do is to trial in different areas. It was lost in the form that we put it out there. We put it out in planters, people sort of missed that. But the function itself, I think, has actually been well received by an element of the community. Some people, I acknowledge, have actually found that frustrating, but it was more about actually being there for people who opt to get around active modes, walking and riding. And we have heard a lot of people who have actually found it a lot easier for that. So I'd be in this position to be bringing this program to you anyway. What those bollards and that out there are still representing is where we could potentially be putting this stuff. So look, I could be taking that stuff in tomorrow, but I would be proposing in my program of work there at the bottom of Broughton Street there that we have an island coming around there directing traffic that helps reduce speed at the end there. So that would be one of my suggestions. A number of the areas are going to have crossings. We've got our roundabouts still in place. We've got thresholds at the end of roads, Broughton Street, Robinson Street, that are still actually doing a good job as far as reducing traffic as people entering into a certain zone. So representative of probably a program and I'd be looking to put to council, but if it's a wish of the council, the will of the council, these can be taken on tomorrow.
Yeah, Peter, I understand it's the orange bollards that seem to be, they don't seem to represent what you're trying to achieve. They're not perceived as what the end result would be. And I think they detract from the solution. And I think Eccles Street's a good example. The solution you put forward, the permanent solution, is great and would fly, but the orange bollards has created an ill feeling. And I think you've got the same issue. The orange bollards are my issue. And I think if you're going to measure what's happened to the main street, I think the bottom of Broughton Street's probably driving traffic onto the main street that would normally go that way, whether that's right or wrong, but that's where the traffic possibly has been going. So I just think, for me, orange bollards should be removed, and I think the community would get a sense of we have fully deactivated that word streets alive, or the two word streets alive. Yeah.
Okay, councillors, you've got a decision to make. You've got some recommendations that have been laid out. It sounds like there needs to be some alteration to those recommendations. So I'm open for a new recommendation or an alteration to the current ones. So there is no change. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I think a recommendation, there should be amendment there in regard to the fourth one. I'd like to put forward an amendment that we, the third one, reinstate the right turn south immediately, that the orange bollards are removed.
Right. Okay.
Your worship,
And-
by way of explanation, that was always the intent. So the intent of the recommendation was that the bollards be removed and the right turn be allowed pending until such time as a more permanent arrangement takes place.
So if a permanent arrangement was to take place, what would be the process there, Peter, in terms of coming to the council for that discussion?
Putting a program of work together, take it to council to get your approval for the work that's to be done. There'd be a funding issue as well. Once again, I'm waiting for the second round of funding to come through from NZTA. So I'm looking to see if they have their 90% sort of funding there we can take advantage of. So yeah, firstly is to get the designs done, get them into council for approval. But in the meantime, things can actually be, I can withdraw more from the roads as far as the bollards. I'm not getting the feedback, possibly from the public as you may be, about how inconvenient like the crossings are. I do talk to the heavy traffic people and they're not giving me that same sort of feedback that they're becoming an issue. They are still doing a job, like at the end of Broughton Street, albeit a lower curb. Well, it's a bit different to a row of orange bollards. So there may be some misrepresenting there.
Well, I guess there's certainly alternate views from councillors on this particular issue. But I guess what councillors overall are wanting to hear, Peter, is that if those orange bollards are removed, as per the recommendation, that there won't be anything go back in there without it coming to council first.
Correct.
Okay. Right. So we've got Councillor Bolger, Councillor Grant, and Councillor Davis.
If that's the intention that the bollards are removed and it's put back the way it was, and the right-hand turn south is reinstated, but a more permanent solution is being considered or looked for, we've just got to make sure that we inform people that there still could be a change, and we still haven't finished finding a solution for that intersection. I'm comfortable with the right hand, with the bollards being removed, but we've got to tell people that this may not be the end of it. It is a dangerous intersection, and notwithstanding the petition, we've got a responsibility to see if we can find a safer way. And if that makes us unpopular, so be it. So I'll support the recommendation with its amendment, but I just want to see the public informed that there could well be some more work done in that intersection.
Councillor Grant?
Yeah, totally agree with Councillor Bolger there, but disagree with Councillor Highstead as far as removing all bollards. We need to be honest, this report, we've actually gone way outside of what this report was. This was all about Eccles Street intersection, and we're actually bringing up Streets Alive again, which we probably shouldn't be even entering into, but we have done so. So I'm going to have my say on the bollards as far as removing them all. I've talked to 2 school teachers or 1 principal at a school where the bollards, and he's saying to me, hurry up and put something permanent here. These bollards are the best thing since sliced bread. You took out the we took out the planters for the simple fact that the public didn't like the planters, and fair enough, they didn't look that great. But those bollards, and I use an intersection every day, or 3 times a day sometimes. That intersection is extremely safe because the bollards are sitting in the middle of the road until Peter gets something around them other than the bollards. I agree with Councillor Highstead, they are ugly, but they need to stay around, especially around the schools. It slows the traffic coming out of St. Peter's driveway when they're turning on to Robinson Street, slows them right down. And basically, at the end of the day, those ones should stay there. But I'll support Councillor McPhail and Councillor Bolger's, and I'll second this Councillor McPhail's recommendation.
So, just so I'm clear, did you move the recommendation, Councillor McPhail?
You did.
Yeah, I think probably the CEO's probably filled in a gap for me there on the 3rd paragraph, just to make sure that we reinstate that right turn south, because that will make sense should we, because the 3rd recommendation is a council note the intention to install permanent, so it's not actually we are. So I'm quite happy with that recommendation.
So you're moving, just so we're all clear, you're moving the recommendation on page 24.
Yes, and that the orange bollards at the intersection of Eccles and Main Street be removed immediately, reinstating the right turn south. The 4 words need to be included, reinstate right turn south.
Okay. So you're seconding
amendment.
Yeah, you're seconding that, Doug? Yep, okay. So we've got hands up from Councillor Davis, Councillor Dixon and Councillor Highstead. I'll have discussion from then. I think we've had enough discussion on this once that has gone on, and I'll put that motion. So Councillor Davis, then Councillor Dixon and Councillor Highstead.
Thank you, Worship. I think even though we've moved outside the scope of this report for the other bollards, I think if the other bollards are there, they're there for a safety reason, and I think they should stay until Peter has another solution for that particular spot. So I'm in favour of keeping the other bollards around town until Peter comes up with a plan. I think with removing the right turn, so allowing the right turn again at Eagle Street, we have to be clear with the public, really, really clear. So I agree with Councillor Bolger, they have to understand that this could change, because otherwise they're going to accuse the council of flip-flopping, of going back and forth and not being able to make a decision. So the public have to be informed that we're going to open it up again, but there is a caveat around that we may well have to reinstate a no right turn. So as long as that's put out with everything else, I'm comfortable.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Highstead. Oh, sorry, Councillor Dixon and then Councillor Highstead.
Oh, thank you, Worship. I have a lot of feedback from the public and they really dislike those orange bollards. And I'm just a question for you, Peter. How soon could you get something permanent in there and take them away? Because they are quite distracting and they do look like roadworks.
For your worship, it really does come down to getting that program together, having it okay by the council, the community, and getting the funding that's going to support that. So this construction period is actually sort of getting chewed up pretty fast. It's probably more likely going to be and maybe mid-season, might even be into the June, July before we can actually get something going there. I'd like to think earlier, but it's just the process that we need to go through.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Highstead.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, I think here the discussion has got off the scope of the report, but this is the first opportunity councillors have had to discuss it when I believe the council resolved a number of months ago to urgently deactivate Streets Alive in response to public feedback, and a working party was formed to manage the deactivation. what we seem to have now is some winners and losers being selected. It's not deactivation of Streets Alive. So I would just like the Working Party. I haven't got the recommendation in front of me to refer to, and I could possibly be inaccurate, but my understanding was Streets Alive was being withdrawn. And we're saying, but we like orange bollards, and we like this and we like that. Not very clear.
I guess we're a bit fickle. Okay, so look, I think we've had enough discussion on this. We have a clear recommendation, which is actually the original recommendation with the slight addition to recommendation 3. And just for my information, the addition of what words go in there after immediately?
Reinstating a right turn, Your Worship.
Right, so reinstating a right turn. Okay, the motion's been moved and seconded. I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Just, I need to count those numbers, please. Those in favour, please. Right hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 against. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. I guess these are the issues that we have been elected to make the right calls on as a council, and while a lot of the calls we make are easy ones, sometimes the easy ones are not always the right thing to do, but we are here to do the right thing, and I believe that if we take our time to work through some of the changes that have been proposed and trialled through the Streets Alive and put them in the right form, not only will they provide us with a safer environment, but they will be accepted and embraced by the community. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but as time goes on. So Peter, you've got your hand up.
Please, Worship, can I ask that we can at least give me 2 weeks or a week to get this done, because I'm keeping true to Councillor Phillips' requests about getting some good information. It would be good to have the traffic counters on Eccles Street a week before we open it up, and then we'll see what happens afterwards, and we can recount in a month's time. But if you gave me a week or 2 weeks, at least I can get that done and got some information to run with.
Look, I feel comfortable with that. Is there any councillor have an objection? Just as soon as practicable. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on then to item 7, and alternative location for the Gore Dog Pound. And we have a report here from the administration officer. I'm just not sure who's going to be speaking to this one. Is that you, Neil?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, do you want to lead us into this discussion, please?
The original pound was going to be located at the Oxidation Ponds. You'll remember we had a robust discussion several months ago when we gave an update on the positioning of the pound. The resource consent stage meant that we had to get preferably permission off a neighbour because of the any building housing animals within 15 metres of a boundary. We were working through that process, but suddenly the neighbour did a complete U-turn. So because of that, and I understand there has been some discussion via the council, I've looked at the different localities of what land that is already owned by the council, and basically this is the only other alternative to be suitable for that. So I put the report as such to the council.
Thank you, Neil. And the report is open for discussion. Just and I thank you for the information that you've put here. I think it's a good and informative report. Just a question around what potential uses other than a dog pound that land might be put to as time goes on. Have the district plan group considered any particular options there that may impede the use of this particular area for a pound. Do you want to make any comment there, Steve or Cliff?
I'll have a stab at it. We haven't really, in our deliberations, considered the activities at the airport at this stage. But what I do notice is Peter Kempthorne, who owns a business there and leases the area substantially of council's comfortable. I do know that he's had a long-standing interest in the activity at the airport. I know there was some thought in the past of potential to have private hangars and things like that, but I would think at this stage initially I'd be happy to take my lead from Peter Kempthorne and Bradley York, because they are essentially the people who are in residence and leasing, if you like. I have to say, it's just unfortunate that our neighbour, the oxidation pond, doesn't seem to be particularly council friendly. That disappoints me. I just have to put that out there, Your Worship. I'm sorry. Okay. So at this stage, I don't think there's any particular impediment to the dog pound going down there.
Okay, thank you, Cliff, and you're speaking in your role as the playing group. Steve, do you want to make any comment before I open it up for discussion?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I think I know I did speak to our consultants, the property group, about this upcoming item early this afternoon in my regular catch-up. And they actually thought it was, in a planning sense, was a really good idea. Well, again, I mean, planes and dogs, they both can make noise. And I do like the idea that it's outside the urban boundaries. I do like the idea that it's a bit more central to both, Gore and Mataura, not just domiciled in Gore. And to be honest, I can congratulate Neil, because sometimes when you've been around a while, you don't really see the opportunities that are there. And this is land that we're not really doing much with. And I just can see that we won't get too many issues in relation to the movements to the property, the dogs barking. It seems to me to be a pretty good location all around.
Okay, thank you. So, Nikki, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Your Worship. Really good outcome, Neil. I congratulate you on pursuing this after your initial efforts were scuppered. And I think maybe the landowner's done us a favour at the oxidation ponds in the long term. I think this is a really good alternative. And I think provided the security of it, we can have a fairly secure pound, is good. And the current leases of the Gore Airport are comfortable, then I'm very happy. I think this is a very good solution. So hats off to you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Through Your Worship, in regards to the Peter Kempthorne and Bradley York, they hold the positions of Vice President, Chairman and Secretary Treasurer. They're looking at the long term that we will have to add extra lighting and some form of security and they can see a beneficial for both parties in the long run for that area.
Okay, thank you. So John, Glennis, and then Neville.
No, it's good outcome. Being a sheep farmer, dog pounds and dogs do not go together with a sheep farmer. And I think that's some of the problem you've had. And also with we had the same problem with a stray dog up here. Even if you have a dog barking on your boundary, your lamb and sheep will move right across the other side of the paddock. A dairy cow will come and probably find out what's going on. So it's quite a good place to have it down at the airport. And also with the Three Waters thing going ahead, we may not have as much control over that area in the future. And I think it's a good outcome, Neil, and a good way to move forward, I think. Thank you.
Right. Glennis?
Thank you, Worship. Just a question for you, Steve. I'm wondering if there was a change in zoning at any stage, whether it could be an impediment having a dog pound there.
Through your worship, not if there's a change in zoning, because once you're lawfully established, you have existing use rights, and you can continue in that same vein for an indefinite period.
Okay, thank you. So, Neville.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just got a question to Neil. I've seen your report about the infrastructure and the water. I'm just a bit concerned about it's non-potable. It's non-potable water, so you'd have to treat it some way if you're going to have staff inside that building. Have you allowed costings for that?
No. If the proposed area is approved, we'll have to look further at that. But I'll then be talking to the Aero Club and Phoenix Aviation, or Super Air now, as to how they coming from the same water supply as what we would be using.
Yeah, I understand that. I know what the water supply is, and it's just a small pump in the
Yes.
ground up into the tanks, and it's not treated in any way. So you think we'd have to treat it, and there will be enough water there to allow for washing down, etc., for all the dog pounds, etc.
We believe so. Yes.
Okay.
We would be able to fill a tank the same as what is behind the Aero Club. So there's could be 10,000 litres in storage at any time.
Yeah, but it's not. So you'd have to have consideration for the staff about the health and safety aspects of the non-drinking water inside there.
Yes.
But anyway, congratulations, Neil. Good job. Well done.
Thank you.
Brett, John and Nikki, you still got your hands up. Are you? Brett?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Look, and a good work, Neil. But I guess, when I see a 50-year facility going in place, there's a change in this in Gore's property market. There's a change in people's wealth nationwide. In terms of amenity, we've got one of our key assets for this district is our airport, and I'm just wondering if we're taking a long-term view or a short-term view here on its location. Personally, if that's some form of gateway to Gore by way of aircraft, and we've got a dog pound there, it doesn't fly with me. I think it's great work, but I don't think we've got a long-term view on the solution. I could be wrong, but look, there's residential units springing up on airfields around the country. I think not that we're talking disposal, but I think the asset disposal working party should have a little bit of a think about this location before we give it the absolute thumbs up. And I suppose just one question I had is, has the landfill site been considered in terms of a industrial area that isn't surrounded by residential and isn't that popular to visit, is locked, has facilities, is flood prone, but I guess so is the existing area. But yeah, definitely I think we could live to regret putting the dog pound here in maybe 25 years' time. Could be wrong.
Yeah. Okay. I understand exactly the concerns that you raise, Brett, and I guess that was really behind the questioning of the planning group. Had they thought about this going forward? Neil, do you want to just make any comments with regard to the comments that Brett's made, and particularly around the transfer station site?
Yes, through your worship, the landfill would be unsuitable mainly because of ground stability is the biggest problem. There's also quite a bit of residential, Toronto Street, etc. So you're not getting away from the residential area as such. I've had quite a bit of discussion with the Aero Club members that I've spoken to, and in regards that their clubhouse is at the western end of the complex there along Jubilee Ave, and they're quite happy in regards to that, and even putting accommodation facilities with a hangar on that area, but they cannot see an issue with the what could be regarded as a noise problem with the pound. So in the long term, the Aero Club are looking forward basically to something else being on that premises and having a bit more relationship with the Gore District Council, but they cannot see an issue that moving forward that would hinder them and, as you say, the Gateway Airport.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, councillors. Neville.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just got one question. The cost. I don't see in the report. Is it the same amount that we passed, or is it going to be a substantial amount more?
It will be more.
Substantial?
Yes. What's the meaning of substantial?
Or anything over $100 is substantial to some rate payers.
Oh, it will be substantial then.
Okay. Are we going to be finished a report, Your Worship, on regardless of the cost factor for this?
I'd imagine there'll be more information come to council. Is that right, Neil?
If you wish, yes.
If there's a change to the specification, is that what's driving the cost?
One thing is that we have not been able to secure the building as such. The building was ordered over a year ago, and it has not yet been delivered because we've been postponing it. So we cannot say that they're going to be able to deliver that on site at the specified price that we received at the beginning of this year. So we have to go down that track. Also, there will be more footing needs to be put in for the foundations of the building on that site, and there will have to be some more security fencing added than if we had stayed down at the Oxidation Pond.
Okay. Look, it does sound like a good alternative, although bearing in mind there could be some long-term challenges, but there probably is going to be a cost. And I don't think we're in a position to know what that cost is currently, because we don't have a confirmed price from the construction people. So, John, did you want to raise a point, and then Doug?
No, I'm all right. Yeah.
Okay. Right, Doug?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I can't actually vote for this recommendation because, as Neville's just pointed out, we don't know what the final cost is going to be now. The cost we thought was reasonably high for the dog pound being put in where it is, or in that area, and also Councillor Highstead's raised some very good points also. Unless there's more information come back, I think I would like to see actually more information come back before we can move on this. I know it's frustrating, especially with the supply chain at the moment and costs going up or whatever. But when Mr. Mayor says substantial, we don't know whether it's going to be another 40 grand, another 60 grand, another 100 grand. So you've lost my vote on this one. Thanks.
Right, so your alternative?
Well, my alternative was I'd like some more information. Maybe we come back with how much this, nail it down to within 5 grand of what the cost is going to be, or we look at another solution. But I mean, it's not taking anything away from Mr. Mayor's report, great report, but the fantastic question asked by Councillor Phillips was, what's the cost? And all of a sudden, it could be substantial. Now, substantial, we don't know what substantial is, so I can't vote on this.
So, Neil, what sort of time frame do you think it's going to take to get a figure on this one?
Probably within the month.
Okay.
Yes.
John? You've got your hand up? No?
Your Worship, if it helps the meeting, what you could do is to approve in principle the siting of the dog pound at the airport site, aerodrome site, and with a further report to be furnished on the updated estimates of cost to construct that facility before final approval is given.
Okay. So do you think we could have that at the council meeting in December?
Yes, I'll get something for you, Your Worship.
Right. Bronwyn?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd be happy to move that with recommendation with those few changes regarding the cost. And I'd also like to say it's a pity that the staff have been put to this trouble, because originally I noticed from the report that the landowner was quite happy with the dog pound being sited there, and then for some reason has done a 360. So well done, Neil, for all the work that you have done, and hopefully the costs won't be prohibitive from going to the site.
Okay, so Stuart, you got your hand up?
Yeah, he was never happy with it being there. That was wrong. I've spoken to him on a number of occasions. He never gave consent. He wanted to consider the position and spoke with me about it and suggested alternative sites down at the sewage treatment plant away from his property. But he was never happy with it being there.
Okay. So Neville, did you?
Yeah, Your Worship, I'm more than happy to second the thing. The only reason why I brought it up about the finances is for a case of transparency, because at the end of the day, when the ratepayer asks, why did it cost so much? We can say, well, this is because we had to shift to this and we saved, in the long term, we may save money. And it's about transparency, Your Worship. But I'm more than happy to second the shift.
So I'm not sure it's been moved.
It was moved by Glennis, was it not? Councillor Dixon, was it not?
No. So do you want to move that?
Sorry, Your Worship, Councillor Reid moved the motion.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Councillor Reid, sorry. I'm more than happy to second it, Your Worship.
Okay. Righto, it's been moved and seconded. Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Phillips, that we approve in principle the construction at Jubilee Avenue to be confirmed when we get a price at our next council meeting, which will be in December. Okay, I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Right, I think that might just about bring us to the end of the open section of our agenda. So I'll move that we move into committee and